Lee Wulff combined his signature Wulff fly with the Royal Coachman to get the Royal Wulff. I'm tying the Royal Wulff on a number 10 2x long hook. Tie it on a 10 or a 12 according to the instruction in Mike Valla's book, The Founding Flies. The Wulff flies have that characteristic buggy look with that white post, either in bucktail or calf. I'm using calf tail. I want that, pull out some of the longer ones here. I want that post to be about the length of the hook so that it creates that equilateral triangle. Tie it in with the points of the calf tail post or wing, I guess it would be on this, since I'm not wrapping around it as a post. Put that out over the eye of the hook, wrap that in. You do have to be a little careful with calf tail because it likes to move. So an easy wrap to start with, and then nice tight wraps. Wrap back on it a little ways just to get it tied in tight, and then I'm going to come forward, lift up on it, make sure that I've got plenty of room in front of that wing for some hackle, and the head doesn't need a very big head at all, but I do want a good amount of dry fly hackle in front of as well as behind. So wrap tight underneath of it to get it to stand up. And if it's not perfectly up, the hackle will help to get it to stand. And then I'm going to take and clip off the waist back here at an angle. Got a few long ones I'll get rid of. Just makes it easier to tie in over them if there aren't a lot of long hairs back here. And then I'll go ahead and wrap back over. Get that wrapped in onto the hook. I'm going to be covering all of this too, so if it's not totally wrapped in right now, it's not a big problem. I got one more I want to cut out there. I'm going to go ahead and take my thread all the way to the bend of the hook because I want some thread underneath of the bucktail that I will be tying in for the tail. I've taken a pinch of brown bucktail from closer to the tail to the body because this closer to the body hair does have a little bit better floating. So I'm going to pull out all the junk from underneath. And then I'm going to stack it so that I get the ends even. So I'll just put those cut ends into my stacker, push them through, hopefully not push them all the way through. And I can put the other end of the stacker on. Stack and then pull them out. Got a little junk there, but that will even up the tips enough for this fly anyway. And then I'm going to do a tail about the length of the body. If I pinch wrap that, then I keep my thread in the proper place. Start with a loose wrap and then tighten down as I wrap forward. I don't want it to flare, I just want that tail to be even. And then I will also clip out all of this waist tail at an angle. And wrap up over that. Get a nice even body. And see how the calf tail for the wing and the bucktail for the tail come together and give me a pretty even body. And I've got some hairs there that are sticking out, but they're going to be okay, I think, because they'll get covered, although I can go in there and just clip this one out of there a little shorter. So because it is a royal wolf, it uses Peacock herl for the butt and the thorax with a red floss body between them. So I'm going to take 2 Peacock herl and just wrap them in by the butt ends right here at the tail, and then wrap forward. I want that thread fairly close because I'm going to tie it off after I wrap the butt. I think that's plenty. And then I'll catch that in. And what I'm going to do is just wrap over it and lay it down to where I'm going to tie in the front puff, or I guess we'll call it a thorax. And I'll keep using those same 2 strands of herl. Just keep my thread right there. Then I'm going to take 2 strands of red floss, catch those in, and then I'm just pull forward so I don't have a lot hanging out in back or in front there. Wrap back on that floss all the way to my butt. Bring my thread up forward, and then I'll wrap. And see the bucktail and the calf tail and the herl underneath of that center section thickens the body there a little bit so that I get a nice kind of thick red section. I will catch that off. I'm going to pull back on my herl. I'm going to bring my thread in front of the herl. Okay. And then I will clip off the floss. And then I will wrap the herl over the end of that red floss body and give myself this nice other front pom-pom. I think we call this the thorax, I'm not sure. And then wrap, I'll do 3 wraps over the top of that, pick it up, pull it back, and wrap underneath of it to make sure that it's secured, and then I can clip out the extra herl. I'm using brown rooster hackle for the hackle, and I'm going to give it a crew cut. So just pull down on the barbs right here at the base where I have cut the fluff off. Trim those real short. And I have those really short little barbs in there, and that gives something for the thread to grab onto and help to make sure that I don't pull out that hackle when I wrap it. And then bring my thread up to the front here. I'm going to take that one white hair out of there right now. And I did tie it in with the shiny side back or the dull side forward to wrap like I would for a dry fly. And I did measure this hackle to make sure that it is no more than 1.5 the length of the gape. So the gape is this distance from the point of the hook to the shank, and dry fly hackle should be 1 to 1.5 that length. So I'll just wrap a few in the back. I'm going to grab the end of this feather with my hackle pliers since it's starting to get short on me. Pull back on that calf tail wing and then take a few wraps in front. I'm going to actually try to use up all of my hackle. Now what is happening is that because I've tied that hackle in with the shiny side to the back, the dull side forward, the barbs on that hackle are tending to curve forward, which is what we want with a dry fly. It helps with the flotation. I'm going to take a couple wraps, maybe 3 over the top of that. Try not to trap hackle barbs around the eye. Then I can let go of that. I'm going to wet my fingers so I can pull back on all that hackle, get it away from the eye, and then just wrap the head. I don't want to wrap back on the hackle, just want to wrap what will become the head. Find that tip of that hackle feather and snap it out. Then I will take, I just use a ballpoint pen, but one that's got a nice proper taper on it. And what I'm going to do, I can just push back on all that stuff, is put a half hitch on using that tool. And what that does is it pulls back any of the hackle fibers that are pushing out over the eye. Got some fuzz. And then I could pull back on all of this and do a whip finish, but for these dry flies that have the hackle out in front like this, I just like to do a double half hitch, a couple of them. So a double half hitch, I'm wrapping the thread twice around my tool, putting it over the eye, and then pulling the thread off of the tool and onto the shank. That helps to keep all of that material, all of that hackle material, away from the eye of the hook. I will take my scissors then and just push them against the thread right up next. And that's going to cut my thread out, hopefully, without cutting the hackle barbs. I'm going to put some diluted goop on the head of that fly. So I just stick my needle in my jar, drop that drop onto the head, and then to make sure that that eye isn't dirty, because I did get some goop in there, I'm going to put a hackle feather through the eye and make sure that it is clean and tippet ready.